So we're back with another Trade Legends podcast, and I'll do my little piece just down the camera. Tonight we have Mark from StealthMounts, which I don't know why it's taken me so long to get you on, because for some weird reason in my head I was like, I feel like he's already been on, and then realised you hadn't, so I don't know why it's taken me so long. But for everybody listening and watching, if you can do me a big favour, because it really helps the channel, it means that we can do what we can do, we get great guests on like Mark. Go and give us a like, subscribe, put the notifications on, all that sort of jazz, and you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and most sort of common places like that. But great guest. I've got some of his products behind me. Excuse my chicken legs down here, ladies and gents. And Mark, give us a little bit of background as to what it is that you do. I mean, most people, if you're in the trades and you haven't heard of StealthMounts, I think, where have you been living? Because I'd say probably 90% of people in videos have got them somewhere in the van.
That's what we'd hope to see.
And, give us a bit of background as to what it exactly is that you do.
So StealthMounts, we make organisational products for tools and anything in construction. That's the aim. If there's something you use in your job as a tradesman and you need to organise it and store it, that's what we aim to solve. The original project was a battery mount. So Sam came up with our first product, designed a battery mount for DeWalt to line up his shelves, all a bit OCD, and that's where it started. I mean, we've now got about 200 products in the last 5 years. So we cover pretty much every aspect of organisation for tools and storage, and that's the basis of the company.
Okay, so what we're going to do first with Mark, I'm not going to get into wax lyrical because I know everybody's going to be like, I love these products. So I'm going to get Mark to take us back to sort of, you're just leaving school.
Well, they either love our products or think they're completely pointless.
I'll be honest. From the amount of social media that I watch, and I watch a lot. My wife calls herself an Instagram widow. Is everybody at some point has got at least one product that you do inside the van?
Well, if you go back to when we were first started, 2016, when we first started injection moulding, I did a few of the trade fairs, and at that time we were getting a real 50-50 hit of, this is completely pointless, I've got an impact driver and a drill, I put them in the box, I don't touch them, I don't need to organise this. We only had the battery mounts at that point, and then the other half of the people are like, I love it, I want to organise my workshop, organise my van, and they loved it. I'd say that ratio has changed dramatically in the last 9 years.
In 2016 there wasn't that many battery powered tools, and I feel like that's probably fueled your business. Again, Milwaukee fuel, no pun intended, but I feel like that's...
It definitely has. Back then, everyone had a drill, everyone had an impact driver, but now, Makita are knocking out a cordless microwave. Everything's cordless now. It's very rare to get corded tools, and that's the difference. So back then, people might have had 2 batteries and a charger, and they rotated them. Now we've got people getting 20, 30, 40, 50 batteries, and everything needs organisation. It makes a difference. Yeah. So we came along at the right time.
Yeah. Okay. So take us back then. You're leaving school.
Oh, crikey. We are going back.
Well,
okay.
I think it's always good to give people background, because then they can sort of see how you've progressed and where you've ended up, and, okay, I can understand why he's gone from there to say there. There are some really wild ones, like Simon Bowler ending up in carpentry when he was a used car salesman and stuff like that. But I always think it's good to give people a bit of your history and the company's history, because I'm sure you talk to loads of people, and a lot of people probably don't really get to speak about you with them. So take us back and give us a bit of background as to...
Okay, so my background is completely unrelated. My background is horticulture. So when I was 12, I went to work at a family friend's plant nursery, and I loved it, and I just thought, well, that's what I want to do. So when the time came, I went to college, studied horticulture, and that's where I met my wife, a long time ago now, and we started our own plant nursery, and we did that for the best part of 20 years. So we used to do all the big plant shows, Chelsea, Hampton Court, Grand Designs, all that sort of thing. Built a lot of roof gardens in London.
And never had you down as a horticulture.
Yeah, so I'm actually my nursery, mine and my wife's nursery, Todd's Botanics. We're an RHS master grower, so one of not very many nurseries have that title.
Any tips? Any tips?
Get real plants, not fake plants.
Yeah. Oh well, I don't need to ask you then. Grass or
Absolutely grass. Always grass. Always grass. We moved to selling plants online when it was very unusual to be doing that. Which was crikey about 17 years ago. We started selling plants online, which was pretty unusual then. And then when my youngest son was born, we moved to being almost entirely an online business and doing the shows. So we no longer open as a garden centre. We were trying to get some sort of level of life back, not being wedded to the business a whole much. It didn't really work, but that's what we were trying to do. So that's how we went along. Over the years, I'd slowly destroyed my body through a mixture of rugby and horticulture, and thinking that I was macho man and I could lift 250 kilos without hurting myself.
And just so everybody knows, just out of shot down here, he's got some crutches today, so we'll get him to tell us what's up with him.
Well, currently I chipped my heel playing cricket because I'm so old last week. But anyway, over the years, I destroyed my body, my shoulders knackered, my back's knackered, and I ended up with a cage on my spine. Ironically, a 3D printed cage, and then I've got metal rods holding.
Sounds like every tradesman.
Yeah, pretty much. And it got to the stage where I realised that I can't keep doing this. That was back in about 2015, so I knew I was going to have back surgery, and that was going to make a big turning point. So I went to see the e-commerce company we used that built our website and helped us on that side of things to see how we could move the business on, so we could be more reliant on that and less reliant on the physical landscaping side. And that's Sam is my business partner in Stealth. He has a company making stock management software, which we still use today and is fantastic software, and builds websites. And he happened to have 3D printed the first product that was StealthMounts, which was a DeWalt battery mount.
What made him print this battery mount?
He had an obsessive collection of tools, and they were all very lined up. He's quite OCD, liked it all nice and neat, and his batteries weren't that neat. And he'd bought a 3D printer. And I think the real reason is he needed to try and justify why he bought a 3D printer. So they
weren't cheap back then, were they?
No, they weren't cheap back then. So they were pretty unusual, and he was trying to justify it. I think I bought this thing. I need to sort of have a reason for it. So he showed me these, and I was like, oh, they're brilliant. So he made some for me for my Makita tools, and the next time I saw them, I was like, these are great. You should.
Have you got a favourite power tool brand? Are you allowed to say?
They're all excellent. I've got least favourite power tool brands.
Yeah. I won't ask you that. I think I can get.
We like all tools. I've always used Makita, and I think they're good tools. But my favourite is the 12-volt Hilti.
Yeah.
Which we don't even make a battery mount for, because no one really sells it or buys it. But that's my favourite tool. It's brilliant. I love it. But we've got at last count over 80 brands we cover, and they're all good. They're all
Because you do. Is it Cobalt as well?
Cobalt. We do brands that people in the UK will have never heard of, and we cover 45 countries now. So
do you do Ryobi as well?
We do Ryobi, Azito, Iron Hell, Hilti, Makita, all the different voltage in Makita, DeWalt, Milwaukee, Craftsman. The list goes on and on. There's Metaba. There's absolutely loads of them all over the world, different ones, and the tools are all good. Even if you go to the lowest spec tools, compared to a tool from 10 years ago, they're phenomenal. They've got great power. Yeah. And yes, there are better ones in the same way that you can have a better car and a faster car. But they're all going to get the job done. So you buy what's suitable for your budget.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back, I told Sam, I said, look, you should be selling these. This is a product. And he was like, oh, well, I don't think it is really. But anyway, next time I saw him, he said, oh, I put some on eBay and I've been selling them, and it's actually, they're really popular. And he designed a few other products.
And was it just the DeWalt one at this time?
At that time, it was the DeWalt and the Makita, because he designed the Makita for me. For you, And then he also had designed dash cam mounts. So back then, when dash cams were sort of a new thing, and when you bought a dash cam, they came with this massive, great mount for the. He'd made a really slim dash cam mount so it could go up behind the sun visor. And he was selling these things, and he was like, the problem with the battery mounts is I can only print off 6 a day, and I can't keep up with sales. And so I said, well, it should be injection molded. So he wasn't that convinced, and I was that convinced.
Yeah.
So we joined forces, and he already had a business partner, a guy called Tom, who's like a mechanical genius, can sort of make anything work. So they bought a second-hand broken injection molding machine off eBay, which Sam went and collected, and we put in the factory. We had these first two. I paid for the first two tools to be made, and we ran the machine. And the tooling company that we still use to this day, who are a UK company, they said, well, when you can't make these, in a month's time, come back to us and we'll help you with it. Well, 4 hours later, Tom took a picture and sent them the first one. He just worked out how to use an injection molding machine. It's ridiculous. He's so clever with these sort of things. And we used to then run the machine for like a week, and that would give us 6 months worth of stock. And that's how we started. So essentially just an eBay business. We carried on 3D printing. We had loads and loads of products 3D printed, load of dash cam mounts. Sam was always coming up with something new.
I presume you don't do the dash cam mounts anymore.
No. So the dash cam mounts we stopped when we stopped doing 3D printed stuff in about 2019, 2020 probably, because it wasn't in line with the brand we were trying to create, because they're not as strong as injection molded. And a lot of the dash cam companies had reacted and realised they needed to make a better mount. And funnily enough, a few of them had very similar designs. But we did very well off it. It helped us grow the business. And it was some nice creative thinking by Sam to make them.
When was the turning point then for you guys, where you've gone from sort of, in essence, an eBay seller to being a fully fledged?
So we were a very, in the scheme of it, we were a very small eBay company, very small company selling on eBay. It was a real side hustle. No one could have lived off it. We didn't have any paid employees. It wasn't a viable business as such. And I decided, as my back was deteriorating even more, that I needed to try and make it a viable business. And I thought, there's some grounds to do something here. So I spent the autumn of 2019, I spent every day, I made 50 phone calls a day, ringing companies, essentially in America, trying to get in somewhere.
Why America then first? Is it just you thought to yourself, these guys buy so many tools, the market's big?
Over the years, I've made lots of subconscious decisions, not really knowing why, and it's only now when you reflect back and you try and, sugarcoat it or think, why did I do that? Honestly, at the time, I sort of felt we'd saturated the UK market with the 3D printing on eBay. Okay, so I was completely wrong on that. We still haven't touched the sides of it, but that's sort of how we felt. I sort of thought, well, America's a big market. It's a third of worldwide consumerism is in the US. Let's go there. From a packaging perspective, language is the same, and there's more of them, and people like our stuff there. And we used to sell globally, but pretty small scale because of the cost of shipping. So I thought, well, we need to have an outlet there. So I made every day banging the phones out, and I got absolutely nowhere.
This is a little lesson for everybody watching and listening, is I don't think people realise when people are starting a brand like yourself, or what we did with Unilite here, just how many times you get told no. Until, it's probably 100, 200 no's for maybe one.
Well, I was making about 50 calls a day, and I was ringing essentially the same numbers each day because no one would just answer the phone. They'd see it's a UK number or a foreign number, and no one would even pick up the phone.
Indian call centre.
Yeah, and I got absolutely nowhere, and this was so infuriating because we were starting to get a bit of traction with sales in the UK with the injection molded stuff. So I thought, we really need to push this on. And at the same time, Tom... No, actually, that wasn't that stage. So anyway, I decided I was told a bit of a white lie to Sam and Tom. Told them that I managed to get some meetings in America, which I didn't have. It wasn't true. But I knew they weren't. They were very risk-averse, so I'm less risk-averse. So in the February of 2020, I went out to the States, door knocking. So I went out and I had few people I was trying to target, and I just went and camped out in their receptions until someone would talk to me.
Get this British guy out of here.
Well, most places wouldn't even let me pass reception. Yeah. But there was one chain.
One foolish security guard.
There was one chain called Acme, a huge, very
Tools, yeah.
very respected company in the US. They've only got 10 stores. Actually, they're just opening their 11th this year. But they're one of the largest online in the US for tools. And I was determined to get in with them. And I went to every single store they've got across Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota. I mean, I was covering some serious mileage every day.
I was about to say, for people listening to that, they don't realise.
I was driving 8-9 hours each day, was trying to visit these stores. It was...
And then when you get there, no, sorry, they're not here.
Not interested, yeah. No, I had no appointments. I was just literally turning up. And then I went to the Plymouth store, which was in Minneapolis. It was just before the close of play at the end of the day. And the general manager there was an expat, it was British. And he was like, so he heard my accent in the store, and he was like, he came out and talked to me, and he goes, "Oh, I really like that." He said, I'll ring head office and see if they'll see you. So I was like, this is the in I need. So he rang up the office, and they said, yeah, we can see him 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I then drove overnight, because it was a 9-hour drive up to their head office. Slept in their car park for a couple of hours, went in and had this meeting where they, a very nice guy, loved the product, hated our packaging, absolutely destroyed our packaging.
Which is probably what you needed at the time.
Well, the problem was it was just in, because we'd only ever sold on eBay, we hadn't even considered
merchandising it. Yeah.
No. There was no retail packaging. It was just in a plastic bag, essentially. It was, when I looked at it, I was then like, oh, this is awful. I've gone to all this effort. I've got there, finally, and it's, first hurdle, and I've buggered it up, really. Anyway, so I left that meeting. He said, look, we sort your packaging out, we'll stock it, and great. So I was like, okay, this is good. So I was driving back to the airport, and I rang Sam, and he went, don't say anything. He said, I've realised we need to sort our packaging out. So I was like, did you have a camera in that meeting? Anyway, so we have very clever packaging that sort of we design our products to work with packaging so we can use no single-use plastic. Anyway, so I came back to the UK, and then we went straight into a COVID lockdown, which was a bit of a disaster.
Yeah. I'll get you to tell people in a bit about the COVID mask and that sort of.
Okay.
Because I think that's quite a good little story as well.
Yeah, we never really talk about that because it just felt the right thing at the time to do. But so I came back, and then really my focus was then completely distracted by my plant business, because we sold, the majority of our income was from the shows, and
you couldn't do any shows.
They all got cancelled within a day, so I lost 95% of my income in a 24-hour period. So we were a bit stuffed. So we had no real way forward, and then I took a big chance and thought, well, I think we're going to go into a lockdown, and we're going to mail orders our only chance for the future. So I used the last of my credit card to buy cardboard boxes, a huge order of cardboard boxes, like 2 years worth of cardboard boxes. And then a week later we got our order. The country went into lockdown, and mail order went absolutely insane. I mean, we could have dug up nettles, put them in a pot and sold them. I mean, if it went on our website, it sold, and it saved us from going bankrupt, essentially. But I've taken a huge risk buying these boxes.
This is the thing that I love about getting people on, is that when people see the brand now, they probably just think it's always been that way. They don't realise that, you come so close sometimes to being like on the, you're staring down the edge of the valley.
Well, we had 2 bankruptcy meetings with our accountant.
Yeah.
And essentially everything was tied to our house, so I had to make it work.
And I always think, when I listen to, I'll class you as an entrepreneur, anybody where...
I hate that word.
I hate it, but it's what people will call you. But I always feel like the people that do that always go all in. Like when I watch interviews with Elon Musk or whatever, and like you can see his mind working, you're thinking, oh, I'm just going all in. I feel like if you're not willing to risk it, you won't get the reward, if that makes any sense. And I love listening to you go, well, I stuck everything on my credit card. Because at the time, you're like...
There wasn't much left on it.
but at the time, you're like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's that mentality that makes a business successful. Even, I don't think people realise, getting on a plane, flying across the other side of the world, driving around aimlessly in a car, because you're like, this is a great idea. You've convinced yourself it's a great idea, and you're getting told, no, not interested. No, they're not in. No, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And then you get that slither of hope.
Yeah.
I don't think people will ever truly understand that story.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've interjected.
No,
I've gone on the waffle.
So in the meantime, Stealth really then was on a back burner. We couldn't, the world was in lockdown. We couldn't sort out packaging and all that sort of stuff. So we were a bit in limbo. We'd got Acme on the hook. They were saying yes, they'd take it, but we just couldn't really do anything.
Yeah.
And then we had the whole PPE problem in the UK, and so we thought, well, we've got an injection molding machine, and Sam designed a face shield that used acetate sheets and elastic and a molded thing. So we got our tooling company to make a tool, which they did in about 6-7 days. It was ridiculously quick turnaround, and we churned out just under 50,000 face shields, which we gave away. We gave them into the NHS to anyone who would ring up. It was intensive care units and ambulances and all sorts of people in the NHS. We were just provided these things. Sam made a machine to measure out the elastic, so it was we were buying kilometres and kilometres of elastic strapping, and anyway, it was good. We just felt like it was the right thing to do at the time. I mean, how we all look back on COVID now is another matter, but at the time it felt like the right thing to do. Yeah. So we did that, and then I carried on with the plants. We were still selling on eBay. It was pretty good, and then we got our act together. Sam and I got the packaging together and sorted, and we spent days and days printing up, cutting it out, getting the packaging right. It all seemed so difficult and stressful. It was the first time for everything. And started supplying Acme towards that would have been the autumn of 2020. And then I got a random call from, it was actually through Instagram. We'd just started on Instagram. Like, Sam would open up an account, but we'd never posted. It was completely blank. We'd never looked at messages. We'd never done anything. And I thought, we probably should do that. I didn't really know what Instagram was, and I'm that old. So we started looking at it and thought, oh, we should do this. And there was a message from an influencer who'd said, can I try some product? And we were like, yeah, you can go for it.
Who was your first one?
The first one that I remember of significance was Murray, Kruger Construction, who at the time had 200,000 followers, which to me...
Which was still mega back then, wasn't
it? Back then, that was huge in this industry.
Because I feel like it was a lot harder to go viral than what it is now.
Well, I look back, in our first year of Instagram, if we got something with 10,000 views, I was over the moon. And I had a look this morning, and in the last 6 months, we've had 20 posts with more than 1 million views, including one with 175 million. Yeah. We've got a post with 4 million likes on it. It's just like the idea of that back then was just incomprehensible. So anyway, he was a really nice guy, and I'm good mates with him to this day. I've been out to see him in Canada, and we bought his truck off him and brought it over here. And he's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He's fantastic. But he put me in touch with a company in Australia called Total Tools. Yeah. So I got a random message from Total Tools saying, we like the look of this product, we'd like to try it. And we managed to make that work, and we then launched into all 100 Total Tools stores in Australia.
How many products did you have at this time? Was it just the basics for the four?
It was. We did have Milwaukee and Bosch, so it was DeWalt, Milwaukee, Bosch, Makita. So those four, and we had it just in the battery mounts. In the meantime, we'd bought a CNC machine, and Tom had just taught himself how to make tools because he's that sort of guy. Yeah, and they were more basic tools than the proper toolmaker ones, but they worked. They proved products. So the tool mounts we started making, the mounting feet that's compatible with the Milwaukee system, and the cleat that goes with it. That's probably about where we were. And we made a bit holder as well, with the magnet in the side.
That's the one that goes on the side.
Yeah, which we've now got 4 versions of, and that's one of our best-selling products. So we had about a dozen products at that point, and they went into all stores. And we from the UK, we service. There we go. Looking for the right word. From the UK, we service all of those 100 stores in Australia, and we still do to this day. They're now 140 stores, and we just grew from there. Yeah. And that really was the kickoff. Yeah, that was the point. So that was the November of 2020.
Yeah.
So from then to now, we're now in approximately 9,000 stores worldwide, 45 countries, and I've got about 200 products.
Yeah.
So we've been busy.
Yeah.
But back then we had
in 5 years.
In 4.5 years. We had no staff at all. There was just me, Sam, and Tom, and
a couple of machines.
one machine, one 22-ton injection molding machine that was from 1981. That was still we've still got it. Still works.
Yeah.
It's now going to become the reception counter, I think. But and it was good. It was busy, and we took on one person to help for 6 weeks with some admin. A very nice girl called Emily, who'd I'd worked with. She'd worked at the nursery, and I've worked with her family before. And she came to do 6 weeks' work, and then she stayed with us for 3 years and was fantastic. I mean, a huge asset to the company. And it made me look at how we do things and finish things and plan, because I suddenly had a member of staff I had to keep busy. But and we tackled some really big projects. I mean, we sell to Walmart, who's the biggest company in the world, and we just had to work out how you go about dealing with them.
Yeah.
I had no idea. We were so green, so naive, and I'd be on a Zoom.
It's a wake-up call, isn't it?
I'd be on a Zoom call with these people, and they're using terms I don't know what they mean. I don't know what anything is. I'd have an iPad next to me, so I could just type in. They'd be using, phrases. What does that? Yeah, and also we use shipping terms, but they use different shipping terms, but for the same thing. So you're trying to understand, and we were dealing with time zones from wherever. So I felt like
it's when they tell you they want this order and they want it within like 3 weeks, or we don't want it. Well, you've got to suddenly ramp production up and get it there.
That's where we actually did really well, because during COVID, nobody could make anything. No one could ship anything. No one had any stocks or anything. But because we made it here in the UK, we were shipping. We were shipping same day, and we'd ramped up staff fairly quickly because people were desperate for work. We bought some mobile offices for outside, so if anyone had COVID but still wanted to work, because you couldn't say they couldn't work, we had space for them. So we sort of worked around all the problems, and we were shipping. So we were getting orders from the UK to Australia within 7 days of receiving the order. Well, they couldn't get orders from Sydney to Melbourne in that time. So the stores loved it, and it just grew from there. And then we really started hard on the Instagram. That became a bit of an obsession.
Yeah.
That's really been the focus for us. And we've worked through it that way.
Are you wasting time? I think that some of you probably are, and I have a solution for you. Nobody wants to do any type of admin. Now, I have a solution for you, and it is called Tradify. It's a fully automated job scheduling, invoicing, and quoting all in one place. Now, that software is going to save you 12 hours a week, and all by using a simple software solution. Now, you can try it for 2 weeks, absolutely free, no cards needed, and you'll even get support in person from Tradify themselves. Now, when you're done, you can always come back to me and thank me, but just enjoy the extra 12 hours that you're going to gain from just using the software. I like getting brands on from my perspective, because obviously the business background, but I'm always impressed when people have sort of, like, people don't see the hard work that goes into it. They just see the end result, and they see the packaging in the stores, and now you're in all these stores. It's almost like it's second nature for people. So I always think it's great when I get you on, and you divulge a bit of this, and people go, "Oh, I could never imagine, like, during COVID, you spent your last money on your credit card, and you suddenly get this random mess," because it's almost like the gods are playing with you, isn't it? When stuff happens. And so off the back of Total Tools, you're now in Australia. Did that then lead to more orders coming from the US, and it just sort of snowballs from there? Or
so I'm trying to remember to get the order right,
because like, obviously you've always said you like to do shows for the horticulture. Did you start when COVID reopened, then doing exhibitions and shows for?
Okay, so absolutely. So obviously, we were desperate to then get stores around the world, and it's not that easy a thing to do. And there was a big show in the US called the National Hardware Show, and we were told this is the place to be. But at the time, COVID was still rife. You couldn't travel. It was a real problem. And then we got a window of opportunity that if we quarantined in a country outside of Europe for 2 weeks, so we could go into the US, but we could only go in by air, not by land. It was really strange rules. So we could either quarantine in Canada, Mexico, or Barbados. Well, Mexico was rife with COVID at the time, and my wife said, if you go to Barbados for 2 weeks,
and I'm stuck there,
there will be hell to pay. So Sam and I, we flew to Canada, and we thought, well, we've got to kill 2 weeks in Canada. So we rented a car on the East Coast, and
went around some stores,
and we drove to the West Coast.
Did you go around any stores? Or?
We did. We went to a great store, Mississauga Hardware in Toronto, and Construction Fasteners in Saskatoon. And we went to see our distributor, who's also up in Canada. And then we drove across Canada and then flew down to Vegas for the National Hardware Show, which it was logistically a nightmare because we had to carry everything for the show. Yeah. I built our stand in the car park of a Home Depot, which was an experience. And we did that show, and it was in some respects it was a disaster because there was no one there. There were more exhibitors than visitors because no one could travel still. So it was a bit of a flawed plan, but it did get us some stores, and then that led to the next stage and the next stage. And
because you've done, was it World of Concrete? You done?
We've just done. We always go to World of Concrete. It's a great show, but we've just exhibited there for the first time, and that was again logistical nightmare. But that was really good. That's a really good. But it's an end consumer show. Yeah. We mainly focus on the shows that get us
the
stores.
Orders from the stores. Yeah.
So we sell into.
What's your favourite show?
Oh, World of Concrete. Yeah, World of Concrete or SEMA.
I always look at these shows in the US and they just look mega.
So World of Concrete is a bit of an unfortunate name, and I get laughed at a lot because I get excited about going to a show called World of Concrete. But it's the best selection of tools, construction, anything related you can think of. Yes, there are whole halls of concrete trucks and pumping trucks and stuff. But the sheer scale of the shows in the US is just phenomenal. But if you want to see the latest and greatest in tools, the biggest Hilti stand, the biggest Bosch stand, World of Concrete.
They're all trying to outdo each other.
There's definitely a lot of that going on. And then this year there was little old us. We were in the same area as all the big guns.
Boys.
Yeah. So it's a really great show. That and SEMA, the car show which is in the autumn.
Yeah. I see a lot of people going to SEMA.
Yeah, so we go to SEMA, and we will probably have a booth at SEMA next year, I think. Yeah. We've got a whole range of automotive products coming out.
Is that a big marketplace for you, automotive, or?
It will be. We've got a new product line coming out for tool chests. So for covering everything from sockets to spanners or wrenches, if whatever name you want to use, depending on where in the world you are. Yeah. Huge range of. It's about 20 different SKUs coming out for Orthel.
Will that be available here as well in the UK?
Yeah. Everything we make is available in all markets. And what we've tried to do now is look at different sectors. Look at plumbing, look at HVAC, look at automotive. What do they need? What can we do that helps organise the tools in that sector, their workshops, their vans, whatever. Because we realised with the battery mounts and the tool mounts, it was very much a construction pigeonhole, really. So we do all sorts of can mounts, tube mounts, all level mounts, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So that's the idea, is to look at the sector and what does that industry need. But coming up with products has never been the problem. Yeah. I mean, we've got, I think, 50 things in line for tooling at the moment, something like that. It's.
I mean, how long does something take you from conception to tooling? Because for us here, it's quite a laboured process from sort of ideal conception to actually getting it here, because we have to sort of get samples and we're breaking and mashing it, and obviously the manufacturing process over in China. Yeah. Whereas for you guys, we can
do the whole thing. So it's speed, isn't it? It depends, really. Sometimes it's easy, and sometimes it's an absolute nightmare. I mean, the draw hive, the new product line, we first started talking about that 2.5 years ago, and it's taken hundreds of iterations, and it's been a huge product to get. And because there's so many bits that work together, that's been a massive project. But I mean, 3D printers now, we use various 3D printers for prototyping. You can draw it, make a change, print it off, test it. It's a fantastic process. You can literally be making a prototype each day, make the changes, print off another one, which never would have been possible before. So I mean, that's probably the hardest product we've had to make work. And that's, I mean, it's been 2.5 years from start to, and that the first moulding should be ready in a couple of weeks. That's been a nightmare, that one, for time frame. Yeah. But we've had other products. We had...
you get busy as well, don't you? So certain stuff just slips a bit while you're trying to...
Absolutely. But we had Walmart reach out to us and say they have a tool brand called Hart, H-A-R-T, which they only sell in Walmart. It is just for them. It's made by TTI, so the same people that make Milwaukee and Rigid and Ryobi. And they reached out to us and said, look, we want to have a battery mount. In fact, the buyer had come across us through Acme. They'd bought some tools from Acme personally, and we'd paid for flyers to go in all of Acme's orders as a way of getting the name out. So he'd seen our flyer through that, 6 degrees of separation and all that. And he said, we really want battery mounts to go with the Hart range that's launching. We've asked the manufacturer to do it, and they've said it'll take 18 months to 2 years. So from that first conversation to having product in his hand was 5 weeks for us. So we knew the concept, we know the battery mount, we just needed dimensions. We made that. So we sell in 1,400 Walmarts across for the Hart brand for tool mounts and battery mounts.
Unbelievable.
So that was 5 weeks from concept to finished product, which is pretty unusual.
Yeah, because I mean, I know other people have tried to emulate, I won't say copy, but they've tried to emulate what you do. But this is where I feel like your USP is the fact that you can turn things around quickly or adapt them or, change them to a specific order. So I feel like that's where you'll always win, because other people are reliant on other people to manufacture something for them.
That's what we've tried to do. Manufacturing ourselves was never really a plan. It was just... That's just how the cards fell for us. I mean, honestly, if you'd said to us at the start, well, if we did this in a traditional way, we're going to get this tooled out in the Far East and you're going to order a container load of stuff and you've got to choose 6 months ahead what you want to order, I'd have had no clue. We wouldn't have invested the money. We wouldn't have had the money. We just grew it organically, and it's how it worked for us. We'd come up with a product, we'd make it, we'd stick it on Instagram, and then we'd start selling it.
It's a good way of testing the product as well and seeing the feedback instantly.
Yeah. And there are some products that are just Amazon products. There's some products that are retail in-store products. There's definitely a division between the two. The more niche they are, they're not always going to work in stores. But yeah, no, there's lots of copycats out there. There's always going to be, and yes, patents help us and so on. But there's only so much to do. The answer really is to innovate. No one can innovate it as quickly as we can. I don't see why they can't, but they can't. Coming up with products has never really been a problem so far, touch wood. So that's what we'll continue to do. We'll continue to grow the brands, innovate, and we listen to our customers. They say, can you find a way to help us sort this out? So we listen and we do it, and that works. That's worked for us. So we'll carry on doing that. Yeah. That's the idea.
So let's move sort of forward. What's the future then for StealthMounts, and where do you see the business sort of moving to? What's the ideal scenario? If I said to you 5 years from now, I don't want to sound like a woman saying what's your 5-year plan, but 5 years from now for the business, if you look back on the previous 5 and you've seen that growth and how you've sort of, you've gone like that and you've ended up in from 100 stores in Australia theoretically to 9,000
roughly. It's hard to estimate exactly because the big chains like Ace and Do It Best and True Value don't tell you which stores you're in. You get into their warehouse, then they supply on. But it's easily that sort of number. Yeah.
What's the future then for you guys?
I'm not really a 5-year plan kind of person.
You're 5 days ahead.
I'm going to go with 5 or 6 minutes. I'm very good at starting things, not very good at finishing things.
I feel you on that.
And that's where we've been really blessed at Stealth, that we've had a great team to help us get stuff across the line. To say, Emily, back when we started, she was a crutch, and to lean on, and no pun intended with the crutches now. And we have a great team now, led by Hannah, and they're very good at seeing projects through. I'm brilliant at starting a project. In the first 10 minutes, I'm the most enthusiastic person, but when it needs finishing, I'm not the man.
He'll tell you I'm exactly the same.
I'm not the man for the job. So and that's why the 3D printing prototypes and testing like that works for my mentality, because
you can just go do it and then mess around.
But if it needs, it's going to be a month before you go.
So
we've been really lucky. The team is fantastic, and people seem to really care about their jobs at Stealth. We try and look after people. But anyway, 5-year plan. I haven't got a 5-year plan.
Well, what would you, if you, because I always used to do this. I have all the packaging in front of me. I'd have a display. I've got it all looking neat, and I'd sort of dream off and think, do you know what? In the next couple of years, I want to have, I don't know, distribution in 5 different countries in Europe, or I want to do this, or I'd love to grow the turnover by X amount of money. Where would you?
There's some particular. I don't really think about the money side of things, because we're quite lucky. We've always grown from.
If you do a good product, money will always find you. I think that's
we're very good at spending it as well. We've invested heavily in the business. We've been prepared to do that. We've bought a lot of machines and a lot of new machines, and we keep on growing, and we'll keep doing that. Excuse me, but there's some particular store chains I'd like to be in.
What's your number one target?
At the moment, there's Northern Tools in North America. I just haven't been able to get in there. Yeah. It's really annoying.
There's always one
it's really pissing me off. It's just there's no reason. It's a perfect product for them, but some buyers are harder to get past. And I'd like to expand us more into the DIY market. We're definitely a trade-focused product. And so we're definitely opening up to have more DIY orientated. So, because places like B&Q in the UK, we wouldn't sell that well there. We'd do ish business, and I'd like to open up slightly more DIY side of the market for us, because then in every country we go to, there's a DIY version. Whether it's a Castorama in France or wherever it is, that's or Bunnings in Australia. There's other markets I'd like to get into. We don't have much covering in Asia. We're in Japan a bit, South Korea a bit, Taiwan, but we'd like to cover that area much better. And we really have not a great coverage in the UK and Europe. We've only just started like now. I know we've gone things a bit backward. So we'd really like to get better known in Europe, get some good coverage up in the Nordic regions, across Northern Europe. So I think that's probably the focus. And the merchandising side of things, we're terrible at that. We're great at making products, we're great at manufacturing, but the rest of it we're not very good at. And that's really tough. That's a really tough gig, and I always thought that would be the easy bit. We've made the product, we've sold the product, people like the product. But getting it merchandised well in a store is actually really. There's an art to it, and we haven't got it.
The problem that you have, I used to find, was each store wants some sort of different style of merchandise, and you'd end up with like 50 different POS stands in different places, and stuff wouldn't look quite right. And then you're trying to fight with other brands to get that little bit of slither of store space. And it's very difficult to sort of design something that works everywhere.
And then logistically we can ship everywhere around the world. I mean,
if it's over a certain size or a certain weight, it's just...
So there are some big challenges, and I'd like to see those through. There's a lot I'd like us to achieve.
You'd like to start there and someone else finish it.
Yes.
If anyone's watching that's good at that sort of stuff, branding, POS and logistics all in one.
I'd like to grow our YouTube and try and make something of that. We've been very heavily focused on Instagram, which has been fantastic for us. It's been a great platform for us. I sort of didn't really appreciate how important it was when we were doing it. I was just making stuff and putting it on Instagram. I'd use our products to make something and just thought, that's quite fun. And it's done well.
I still can't believe in this day and age that there's brands that don't realise how powerful social media is.
No, absolutely. It's so powerful, and it connects us everywhere. I mean, we're trying to make a product in the UK and sell it globally. Well, you need a platform to sell globally. I mean, if we didn't have social media, I honestly don't think we would exist that well, because we were starting with no money. We weren't going to take out national TV advertising in 50 countries, or magazines, or whatever, or a social media platform. Suddenly we're available to everyone everywhere.
24 hours a day.
Yeah. That's my favourite bit, because we're in so many countries. There's always a shop open somewhere in the world selling our product, and I love that. I think that's brilliant. I used to like waking up in the morning, looking at the orders in the morning, going, all these orders from around the world
somewhere's
overnight.
buying your product. It's a great
It's a very satisfying feeling. And I like the fact that our products actually they're useful. People like them. They're helpful. They do a job.
It's very difficult to design and make something that people in different markets all enjoy. I just want to, even the iPhone, people just think it's a phone, but to make something that sells, how many units do they sell of these? 80 or 100 million or something like that a year. Like, you think, unbelievable.
It must be more than that, I would have thought. I mean, huge number.
Unbelievable.
So I think there's still lots to achieve, and there's lots more products to invent. We've got lots more to think about. I like the fact we make here in the UK. That was never really a conscious stance, but I'm quite proud of that now. Keeping some manufacturing here. It's a bit of a lost art. I like the fact we do our tool making in the UK. We've been working with the same tool makers from day one. They're 40 minutes down the road from us, and they've been very patient with
with you,
with my scrappy drawings, and then and our different ways of workings, and then even Sam still does our CAD for any products, but they've been a great company to work with. So it's good.
So what we do round about this time in the show is we do it's almost like a Jerry Springer style final thought. So you can shamelessly plug yourself, which I don't think you need to. Drop some knowledge for people, or from your experience running or starting a business, for anybody that's listening or watching and they're thinking, I'm going through the same scenario, I'm about to go broke or whatever. You can drop some advice on how you dealt with that. It could be absolutely anything. So I'll put you on the spot, and you can sort of think, what would I wished I'd have known, or what would I say to somebody in this scenario, or just in general, if you enjoy something, keep doing it. It could be absolutely anything.
I would say that the toughest bit we've had is, I'm a gardener, I'm a horticulturist by trade. So I'm so naive and green to all of this, every aspect of it. And we've come across some huge things to work out, whether it's learning how to work the portal systems of whichever company it is we're trying to do, or the onboarding with whoever it is, or getting ISO compliant, all these things that we've done, massive things that we've undertaken.
Which you need as well.
Which you do need, but don't see them as a massive thing. Break them down into chunks. You've got to solve this problem. Well, what's the first bit of that problem, and work that out. Make it into and then work out the next bit and the next bit, and then the whole big piece comes together. Don't try and see it as this massive entity that gives you anxiety and fills you with dread. And you're like, well, it's far too big a problem. We're never going to work out how to do that. Just break it down into, I need to do this to achieve this, and then I need to do that to achieve that, and then just work through the process.
It's a bit like pushing a stone uphill, isn't it? Like a big boulder. You do a little bit each day, and eventually you
get there. But don't give up. People do give up. You've got to just put your head down, plug away at it, and if you need to, find people around you to help. You doesn't have to be,
I said the same in my little leaving speech earlier. You don't just for anybody listening or watching. My last day at uni, so I gave the speech out there and said you can't run a business on your own.
No.
Which I was trying to say to all of these out here. Without them, the business wouldn't have been as successful as it was.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
That's hard though, finding decent people.
It is very hard finding decent people.
If you know anybody, Mark's looking.
Actually, do you know what? We've got a great team about us. And I saw this. It wasn't very. Was it a Netflix executive said you need to do this? Who would you fight for on your staff? If you wouldn't fight for them, you should sack them. And I thought, do you know what, this our staff...
My face is too pretty. I love them all, but just...
No, our staff have been fantastic. You know, they've really been fantastic, and we've got a great team, and we've been really lucky with that.
You realise it when stuff's going wrong. That's when you really realise, actually, like, I've got good people here, because everybody's like...
Yeah, we had it last year. We went. We got a big contract to supply Lowe's, which is big for UK listeners. Is a bit like a big B&Q, but slightly more trade version. And we
like a screw fixie type, but
it's a screw fix, but in a B&Q type layout.
Yeah.
I mean, huge, massive company, great company. They've been fantastic to work with, but they put us into all their stores in one hit. So we had 1,742 stores to stock from the UK to the US. It was a mammoth undertaking, and the staff all rallied together, got it going. We'd worked towards this for months, and then we realised that we were going to miss our targets by like 4 months. It's like, oh shit. And, you know, we got 25 extra staff in, and they all got on with it. You know, our core staff, they all got on with it. They made it work. They all committed extra time. No one had to do anything, but everyone actually seemed to care about making it work. And it really was, for me, it was pretty special to see that people were prepared to do that. So, and we got it all delivered on time. You know, just literally. So it was a good thing. So it's but you know, but just keep plugging away. That's my my 2 pence is just keep plugging away.
Good advice, because I always feel like people see Instagram and they think everything happens tomorrow, rather than realising. I mean, you know, how long have you been doing the business for now? 10 years? Yeah,
pretty much. But properly since the autumn of 2020. But yes, it's been 2015 is when we started. So yeah, we're coming up 10 years. Yeah. But even on the social media, it's, you know, everyone thinks they're going to get a viral video, and some people do. Some people put on a funny video that just
hits.
The algorithms like, and it gets shared a bit, and it does well, and all for them. But for most people who want to do something on social media, it is a grind. It is a thankless, monotonous grind. And I did all of our social media, and it was a pain in my arse. And we have a guy who helps us with it now, and he was plugging away at it, going, well, we're not really getting any hits. I said, you just have to keep going.
Consistency, yeah.
You have to. And 6 months ago when he started, we weren't really on Facebook. We didn't do anything. We had an account, but I think we had 3,000 followers or something. And we had no views. And I looked this morning, we're at 21 million views in the last 30 days. It's just putting the content out, doing it every day, consistently keeping with it, appeasing the algorithms, you know. You just have to sometimes just keep your head down and work at it. And persistence does pay off.
Thank you very much, Mark, because I could sit here and talk to you all day. But I just want to say big thanks to Mark from StealthMounts. And also, again, if anybody will, just go and like, subscribe, comment. If you've got any questions for Mark, stick them in the comment section below. And thank you very much for joining us on the Trade Legends podcast.
Privileged to be here.
Thank you very much, mate.